So the Kraken lose to them when they're bad, but beat them when they're good. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but at least we're on the good side of things right now. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R as the Seattle Kraken beat the Vancouver Canucks 5-2 at home. The best team in the NHL coming into the night. At least by points anyway. And for that matter, it's the second time in 3 games that the Kraken have now beat a conference-leading team, as they beat the Bruins just 2 games previous. So in the end, while I'll admit I was apprehensive going into this game, it turns out this one was absolutely worth putting off binging Avatar for. And it turns out that it was an important night for the Kraken to win on too, because, well, in a wildcard race like the Kraken are in, every win is an important one. This is a night where pretty much every team the Kraken are racing with for that wildcard spot or chasing ended up winning as well, with the lone exception of the Kings, who lost to the Predators. A game where basically you just hope that doesn't go to overtime, and for what it's worth, it didn't, but at the same time, it does mean that the Predators, who the Kraken are chasing, also got 2 points, along with the Flames, who beat the Bruins, and the Blues, who shut out the Islanders. Now, of course, obviously the Kraken can only control the games they play in, but as far as that's concerned, it is encouraging to see them beating some of the best teams in the league, especially because if they're able to do that with any kind of consistency here over the next couple of weeks, once the schedule really lightens up towards the middle of March, and they face pretty consistently some of the worst teams in the league, as long as they can take care of business there, that will set them up pretty well to get one of those wildcard spots. Probably the second one, but if the Kings continue to slip, it could be either one. And yes, I am well aware that even though Vancouver and Boston are in the top of the standings in each of the 2 conferences, both of those teams are going through tough stretches, maybe their worst stretches of the season at this point, but I'm certainly not going to complain that the Kraken are getting them at a pretty fortunate time for the Kraken to be facing them, especially the Bruins, who the Kraken played 2 games ago, and now will play again coming up in 2 games on Monday. So the Kraken get the Bruins at a very good time for both of their games this season. Anyway, to focus back in on this matchup for the Kraken against the Canucks, a matchup which, weirdly over the 3-year history since the Kraken came into the league, has been one that's typically won by the team that's doing worse in the standings at that point in time. I mean, it certainly panned out that way in this game, as well as the last time these 2 teams met a couple months ago, where the Kraken ended up winning that one in Vancouver. Which I guess is to say that it's a matchup that's predictably unpredictable. Either way, for the Kraken, they roll into it with a predictably pretty similar lineup to what they had against the Red Wings, with the exception of Grubauer starting instead of Decord. And I wouldn't freak out too much. I don't think this is the Kraken sitting Decord because he, for once, had a sub-900 save percentage against the Red Wings. I think this is really just them trying to get back to a little bit more of a tandem, especially as we get through the last stretch of games. It will help them to have both goaltenders a little bit more fresh if they are to make the playoffs. And besides, for what it's worth, Grubauer was great in the one other game that he played since coming back from his injury, and picked up right where he left off in that game in this one against the Canucks. Now, yes, he does have just above a 900 save percentage in this game, letting in 2 goals on 21 shots, but both of those goals he lets in are off of pretty fluky plays. I mean, one of them is, as we'll see in a little bit, a couple of the most unlucky bounces the Kraken have had go against them, and the other one is unfortunately the first goal of the game. As we get started, the Kraken get off to a pretty good start, but the Canucks have a good shift back the other way around the 5-minute mark, and during that shift for the Canucks in the Kraken end of the ice, Grubauer at one point makes a blocker save, but after making the save as he's trying to get back in front of the net, somehow the end of his stick gets caught in the back of the net. He can't get it out of it cleanly, so he just has to leave his stick behind the Kraken net, stuck in it, so not even one of his players can try to get it back to him. So then he's stuck in front of the net without a stick, and of course it ends up making all the difference, as eventually the puck ends up in front of the net from behind it. In the fate of JT Miller, it's just kind of bouncing around, and it's the type of thing where Grubauer would have easily, if he had his stick, been able to sweep the puck aside and get it out of harm's way, or even just pull it towards him to get a freeze with his glove. But without his stick, he's just trying to get a hand on it, isn't able to do so, and eventually, I don't know if it was on the first or a second shot off of a rebound, either way, without the stick and Grubauer unable to get the puck out of the crease, it ends up getting past him off the stick of Miller and into the net to give the Canucks the 1-0 lead. And then, of course, following the first unfortunate Vancouver goal, things go from bad to worse for the Kraken as they pretty much immediately send the Canucks to a power play. Now, luckily for the Kraken, the Canucks power play has been struggling mightily of late. I think they are something like 1 for 26 coming into the game, and it did not get better for them in this one, which, after the Kraken kind of helped fix a couple of power plays on their road trip, it was nice to see them take advantage of a bad power play in the Canucks here, or at least bad as of recently. Still, the Kraken survive that, get through the next couple of minutes, and end up with a power play of their own. And it's a Kraken power play that, although it doesn't get off to the best start, and no, they don't technically end up scoring on it, just as the power play comes to an end within the first couple of seconds of the Vancouver player exiting the box, before he can get back into the play, it's done down to McCann, which draws a lot of pressure, rightfully so, but McCann goes right back up to Dunn for a one-time blast right at the net through the screen of Wennberg and into the top corner to give the Kraken not the power play goal, but the first goal of the game for them, and tying things back up at 1. For Dunn, it's his 9th of the season as both Burakovsky and McCann pick up the assists, and for the Kraken, they're able to maintain the momentum for at least the majority of the rest of the first period. By the end of 1, it's still tied at 1, but the Kraken are leading the shots on goal 9-6, and they're on a power play to start out the second, and what an entertaining second period it turned out to be too, especially as it gets started off the right way. The Kraken, still with basically an entire power play left, even if they do have to start it from center ice, end up getting the puck back into the offensive zone quickly, and 21 seconds into the period, it's Jared McCann who gets left completely alone in the middle of the ice in the offensive end, as all 4 Canucks players, who I can only assume forgot that there wasn't a 5th guy to cover McCann. I mean, in the end, it does kind of look like on the replay that it's mostly Tyler Myers, who's the last guy down into the corner for the Canucks, that kind of abandons McCann all alone there in the middle of the ice. Either way, it gives McCann all the time in the world to settle the puck down for him, pick his spot, take his shot, and it's a perfect bullet to the top corner, off the post and into the net. Demko definitely does have a chance. It's a wide open shot, but it's an absolute laser and a perfectly placed shot from McCann. So you gotta tip your hat to the shot from McCann, and it gives the Kraken the power play goal, officially a power play goal this time without a doubt, and the 2-1 lead. And if you, as a Kraken fan, think that you enjoyed that start to a period, with McCann picking up his 25th of the season on a power play to give the Kraken the lead, 21 seconds in, and it was an unassisted goal, which, as an aside, feels like Burakovsky in particular gets a bit gypped of an assist here as he was fighting for the puck down in the corner. Either way, McCann picks up the goal, the Kraken get the lead, and then maybe even the very next shift, it was within a minute later, Tanev ends up getting in a fight with Garland. And there was something going on between these two in the first period. I don't know what set it off or what happened. Either way, it's Garland, who was the smallest player on the ice, which I really only bring up because I did see some Vancouver fans on social media getting all on Tanev's case for being such a tough guy going after the smallest player on the Canucks, and smallest player, I think, between the two teams. In the end, though, I think it really was Garland that came after Tanev here. Again, both were willing combatants, but Garland comes on the ice, sees Tanev, goes right to him, asks to drop gloves. Tanev is more than happy to oblige. And from there, calling this a fight is a bit generous. A fight, to me, tends to suggest that there are 2 combatants that both get their chances in the fight to get some licks in, but that's just not what happens here. Tanev gets Garland in a headlock pretty much right away and starts beating him to a pulp. It's a completely one-sided fight. Garland might have gotten one swing in towards the end of it, but Tanev definitely made him regret getting on the bus in the morning. Though I suppose in Garland's defense, this fight does seem to spark more energy out of the Vancouver bench, as they, for one of the first times in this game, finally start to build some momentum towards the Kraken end of the ice, and eventually, on a rush, they end up getting that horribly unlucky for the Kraken series of bounces that find their way past Grubauer for the second time in this game to even things at 2. It's a rush chance into the offensive end, Teddy Blueger with the puck, and he fires off a shot that really, I don't think was ever intended to be a shot on goal, as it's going well wide. I think he's just trying to put it off the end boards to bounce to a Canucks player that was in ahead of him. But this bank pass or dump in or whatever Blueger was actually trying to do with the puck here never ends up making it to its originally intended target, as on the way it goes off of Schultz, I think in the skates, and then right into the slot, off the chest of Lafferty, who's tied up with, I think, Dumoulin, and right past Grubauer into the back of the net. Again, 2 horribly unlucky bounces that change the trajectory of the puck quite a bit, that end up ping-ponging their way into the net. Grubauer no chance, and the Canucks tie things at 2. Oh, and then of course, just like with their first goal, they immediately go to a power play, which again, the Kraken kill off without too much trouble, then get a power play of their own, which this time they aren't able to capitalize on either during it or immediately after. The Canucks then end up on another power play, as the officiating was starting to get a little bit questionable here towards the middle part of the second period, and that's really in both directions. I'm not just saying that because this is another call against the Kraken. It was a game that the officiating kind of got worse as the game went along. It started out fine, but Yeah, there's a couple of questionable calls both ways, either non-calls or ones that were actually made. But at least fortunately for the Kraken, with some questionable officiating, their special teams is finally playing well here over the last couple of games, notably after I really laid into them for their poor special teams a few games ago. Obviously, my doing completely there, I'm happy to take the credit for that. Fortunately, the Kraken special teams, though, finally playing well. They actually get a shorthanded rush chance back the other way on this second Vancouver power play in the middle part of the second period. Now, unfortunately, the Kraken don't score shorthanded on that chance, but they do kill off the power play, and as it comes to an end, they get right back down the ice the other way, just as they get set up on the offensive end. It's Justin Schultz from well out above the faceoff circle, firing off a shot at the net, which finds its way through everybody into the back of the net clean to give the Kraken the 3-2 lead, thanks in large part to a screen in front of Demko that takes away his ability to see that shot coming, provided by a combination of Matty Beniers and Tyler Myers as they're kind of tied up with each other in front of the net. And yes, definitely not the guy you want Beniers tied up with at all. Tyler Myers, the one that gave him a concussion in his rookie season, but at least this time Myers isn't trying to end Beniers' career. Instead, he's just screening his own goaltender so the Kraken can take the lead. For Schultz, it's his 5th of the season, with Dumoulin and Eberle picking up the assists, and then the Kraken continue to lay on the pressure, and just over a minute later, with a TV break in there, so a little bit longer than that in real world time, but the Kraken right back in the offensive end thanks to some more sloppy play by the Canucks, and it has to be said, the Canucks were pretty sloppy for the majority of this game, but it really came to a point here after the Kraken take the lead, and it cost them with the Kraken getting right back on the board again. It's McCann with an absolutely beautiful backhanded pass through the legs of a Canucks defenseman in front of the net, getting it to Eberle on the far side. Eberle gets a great shot off with an equally great save made by Demko, but the rebound goes right back to Eberle, and Eberle makes no mistake on the rebound chance. He buries it into the back of the net to give the Kraken the 4-2 lead. Eberle, with an assist on the goal just a minute ago, picks up the goal here, his 12th of the season, and McCann his 2nd assist of the game, with actually Schultz picking up the secondary on Eberle's goal just like Eberle did for his. And the Kraken do not let up there as they continue to lay on the pressure throughout the rest of this second period, trying to extend the lead even through a Canucks power play that they get through basically the last 2 minutes of the period. A power play that they really never should have had in the first place. It's probably the worst call of the night, as Pettersson on the rush with Beniers in front of him pulls Beniers towards him to draw an interference call. I guess the ref didn't see Pettersson grab Beniers' jersey, the back of it, and pull Beniers into him. Beniers felt it, took exception to it, and gives him a little shove, and apparently either that or Beniers getting pulled into him was enough for them to give Pettersson the penalty. Either way, the Canucks don't really do anything with it. In fact, the Kraken are the only one that get a scoring chance on that Canucks power play. So we go to the third with the Kraken leading by 2, and as we know, they've been pretty good at winning games when going into the third with a lead, and they're able to do that here, as the third period really doesn't feature that much as far as good scoring chances either way, which is exactly what the Kraken want. They're, taking advantage of the sloppiness of the Canucks here and there, but for the most part, just trying to play solid defense through the neutral zone and in their end of the ice when they need to, which they really didn't need to do a ton, and even when the Canucks did get into the Kraken end of the ice, everything was kept to the outside, lots of shot blocking by the Kraken, as although Grubauer did have a very good night, he honestly didn't have to work that hard. There was only a couple of good saves that he really had to make, and nothing that was particularly the highlight reel, which from a defensive perspective is exactly what you want. And I don't say that to take anything away from the night that Grubauer had. He did everything he needed to in net. Again, the only two that end up past him are off of a horribly unfortunate sequence of events in the first one, and then 2 terrible bounces for the second. But the fact of the matter is, there really wasn't that much for him to do with how good the Kraken were defensively in this game. Not just at limiting shot quantity with just the 21 shots allowed against, but also the quality of the shots, with the most dangerous one being that one from Miller that only really goes in because Grubauer wasn't able to sweep it aside with the stick that he didn't have. So eventually, with actually over 4 minutes left in the game, down 2, the Canucks pull the goaltender to try to get back into it with the extra skater, but never really get much of anything going. And eventually it's Jared McCann who gets the puck cleanly off a turnover in the Kraken end of the ice, sends it way down to the other end, just missing the net, but the first man in is Eberle. He puts the puck in the net off the rebound from the boards. It gives him his 2nd of the game. That one's his 12th of the season. I misspoke earlier. The first one in the game, the 4th for the Kraken, was his 11th. This empty netter is the 12th, and the assist for McCann gives him his 3rd assist of the night, a 4-point night for McCann. So another great night for him against his former team, the team that obviously drafted him 24th overall in the first round way back when his career got started. And for the Kraken, they pick up a much needed 2 points in the standings with a 5-2 win over the top team in their division and Western Conference, and league as a whole coming into the night by points. So in the end with this game, it's a fantastic one for the Kraken, though I do have to say here real quick, it was not a particularly well played game from the Canucks standpoint. They were pretty sloppy for large chunks of this game, definitely not their best, certainly by this season standards if nothing else. Though for the Kraken, they can only play against what's out on the ice against them, and they did a very good job of taking advantage of the opportunities that were given to them by the Canucks through that sloppy play. Certainly at least enough of those chances to get that lead and really run away with this game. And especially considering the 2 goals the Canucks get are off of pretty fortunate either direct bounces or situations with Grubauer losing his stick and not able to defend the way that he normally would with it. This game could have been a lot uglier for the Canucks than it ended up being, especially because while Demko didn't necessarily have a great night, he also stopped a couple of pretty good chances for the Kraken that very easily could have ended up in the net because of poor defense being played by the Canucks. Still, for the Kraken, again, they did everything they could to take advantage of those chances offensively, and then at the other end of the ice, they were fantastic. One of the best defensive games from the Kraken all season. Again, like I already said, limiting shot quantity pretty well with just 21 shots on goal, and quality very well as well. Pretty much everything to the outside, aside from the couple of chances up by the net in that first period. Even those really were only able to happen because Grubauer didn't have his stick, and everything else was tons of block shots. Whenever Canucks did try to get in front of the net, they were quickly escorted away from it, or made sure that they weren't going to have any chance to pick up rebounds and that kind of stuff, which was important because I think especially early on, Grubauer did let up some pretty not great rebounds, but the Kraken were right there to make sure that those didn't cost them in any way, either getting them out to the side or making sure the Canucks couldn't get sticks on them so Grubauer could take care of the rebound after allowing it to happen. Though, of course, with all that going well for the Kraken, it does make picking 3 stars a little bit more difficult, but that's a good problem to have. As always, with the Kraken 3 stars, these are brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you want to help decide these 3 stars after every game, especially ones like this where there's lots of good options to choose from, you can help support the channel a little bit more than you already are by watching at this point by going to the link down below to Patreon and supporting over there as well. Now, while it will be a hard choice for the 3rd star, the first 2 I think are pretty obvious, and the first one certainly so, with Jared McCann, the 4-point night, 1 goal and 3 assists. He's clearly the 1st star, and even outside of the points that he was able to put up, he was all over the ice, had a couple of other very good chances to score, one shorthanded, another pretty good open shot at 5-on-5 that he wasn't able to put in. A great night from McCann as he continues to build off of a very strong stretch here. He has been hot of late and playing very well. 6-game point streak, I'm pretty sure it is now for him, and goals in at least 4 of those. So he continues to play well as his line mate in Jordan Eberle, who's my 2nd star in this one. Eberle has 2 goals and an assist of his own, one of them being an empty netter, so maybe a little bit of a grain of salt with that one. Still, a 3-point night is a pretty good night for Eberle, and he too has been playing very well, as really has that entire line. Beniers doesn't end up getting on the score sheet, but he has kind of an honorary assist on that Schultz goal with the screen, or helped screen, of Tyler Myers. And aside from that, he was great in this game, had a couple of very good chances of his own. It just so happened that it was, when it came to scoring, the night for McCann and Eberle to get on the board. So then as for the 3rd star, this is where things get a little bit more tricky. I think Beniers did play well enough that he could be the 3rd star. Grubauer also did very well. I don't really think that he had to work hard enough to be even able to earn a star in this game. He did everything he had to, certainly kept the Kraken in this game, gave them every chance to win, and they did more than enough to make sure that happened. There's also Justin Schultz, who's probably the guy that I would have picked if it was just me. He has a goal and an assist and a fantastic night. But ultimately, I'm going with Patreon here. Vince Dunn is going to get my 3rd star. He too has a very good night, obviously has the power play, or not power play goal, the goal right after that first power play that isn't a power play goal, but there's still basically just 4 guys for the other team on the ice. But anyway, you get what I mean. Dunn had a great night. He continues to build off of a fantastic season. Still leading the team in points, I'm pretty sure. Nope, not leading the team anymore, though he is tied for 2nd with Bjorkstrand with 41 points. McCann is leading the team with 45. Still, Dunn continues to build off a fantastic season, even after signing that big contract at the start of everything. For the Kraken, another fantastic game. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below, who your 3rd star would be, who your first 2 would be if you somehow find a way to disagree with McCann and Eberle as the first 2, and what we think about this game in general. Obviously, the Kraken and Canucks continue to exchange these games where whatever team is doing better on the season tends to lose them. an interesting rivalry that these two have going early on. And until next time, with the Kraken playing a very important game against one of the teams there in that wildcard race with the Wild, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.